Uh, Hello everybody. And welcome to the guest speakers portion of our ceremony. So I'll introduce myself again. My name is Daniel Achikon, and with me here today is Rahul Desai, our first guest speaker this evening. Rahul has graduated magna cum laude from Georgetown University in 3 years, where he studied business administration and English. Rahul currently works as the general manager for the operations cluster at Sylva. Rahul will explain more about himself and his career path in his first 15 minutes, and we'll open up the last 15 minutes for Q&A. Please send your questions in the chat when the Q&A sessions begin, and Rahul will answer them. So it's all yours, Rahul.
Cool. Well, thank you all for having me. Really excited to be the first speaker at this hackathon. I think what you all are doing is incredibly cool. And I wish more things like that existed when I was your age. So yeah, keep it up. But with that said, I'll sort of trace out my career path and sort of how I ended up here. And I'll talk about the importance of luck in your career and then kind of how to make your own luck. And then we can open it up to Q&A. So to start off, like some of the folks organizing here, I went to Rutgers Prep School. I graduated in 2013 and then went on to Georgetown University. I think that was probably the first big stroke of luck I had in my career because it enabled me to meet a bunch of people who were far, far smarter than I was, including the person who is now my wife, which is it's pretty great. And from there, I learned that these conceptions I had about what I want to do in my life were completely wrong. So initially in high school, I thought, oh, I want to go be in finance. Like, I think I'm really interested in the world of finance. I want to be a banker. That's what I'm going to do. And as I went through college, I realized more and more that that's not at all what I wanted to do because I had internships in that space. And I was lucky, frankly, that I lucked into one of those internships early on, so that way I could shift what I wanted out of my life around. Um, and so this whole experience of doing an internship and finding it not right for me caused me to try and shift myself to pursue more of entrepreneurship. And that was something that I didn't foresee for myself when I was younger. It really came out of the blue. And so the first sort of lesson that I would try and impart is be open to changing your mind about things. Try being flexible when the universe or fate or whatever tells you that the path you're going down might not be the right thing for you. So yeah, I got into entrepreneurship early on in my time at Georgetown. I founded my own company called Trendify back actually in late 2013. Um, it was a machine learning company before people were talking about GPT or even machine learning at all in those days. And so I built a team of 10 people. We were able to build a pretty sophisticated product over the span of 2 years. And my next sort of learning about careers and how they can go wildly off the path you expect is we spent 2 years building this amazing piece of software that could predict whether startups would succeed or not. And then we tried to sell it and no one wanted it. And that was a complete wake up call for me because I had convinced, 10 people to come work for me. And, we ended up winding down the company because no one wanted this thing that we had poured hours and hours and hours of our time, years of our time into. And I started looking at the market and why no one wanted this thing. And really the answer was that we were trying to sell into venture capitalists. And these people sell their judgment ultimately to people when they're raising their own funds to go and invest. And so for us to come in and say, hey, your judgment actually doesn't matter at all, I can replace it with a robot, was really bad for their business model and probably worse for their egos. And no professional wants to be told, hey, you're actually dumb. A machine can do what you do. Um, and so that was one of my very early learnings about sales and how to learn from the customer what they actually want, not just building something because you think it's cool without understanding what the demands are in the market. And so I came out of that experience actually very disappointed in myself. And I realized I needed to learn a lot more about how businesses operated internally, what value structures look like, how they thought about building products, marketing those products, selling those products. And that took me into the world of consulting after I graduated school. And I was lucky enough to work at a company called Fahrenheit 212, which did product strategy for companies like Google, Uber, a bunch of other household names. And so every month I'd be working on something different. One day I could be designing a building for a company. And then the next day I might be working on a software product. And the day after that, I might be doing a food product or something you might buy in the grocery. And that experience was extremely valuable to me, but also a consequence of luck. I landed that job not because I necessarily knew about it or was the right talented person for it, but because the deans at my school happened to find it and said, "Hey, you might be a cool guy for this role. You should go apply, and like we'll write you a letter of rec." Um, and so, it's one of those other instances of luck making a world of difference, but kind of making my own luck as well, because I had been working on this startup, and that's how the deans became aware of me as more than just another student in school. Um, and so the startup failed. I went into the world of consulting. I worked my butt off. There were points where I was sleeping on the couch in the office because I was working 100 plus hours a week. I wouldn't probably advise that. It leads to a whole host of other problems in your life. So if you can avoid that, probably don't do it. But I'm thankful for the overall experience because I walked away knowing how companies like Uber function internally, how they hire people, how they build ops processes, how they think about engineering, all these different things. And that actually was what helped me rebuild the confidence to get back into the tech industry. And so I joined a insurtech startup when they were about 100 people as my next job. And then while I was with them, they grew to 250. They quadrupled their valuation to about $500 million. And while I was there, I was one of their first operations managers. That was another thing that happened by pure happenstance. Like I tweeted saying, "Hey, I'm job hunting. Who wants to give me a job?" or something to that effect. And a bunch of companies said like, "Hey, we might be looking. Do you want to get on the phone?" And that's how I ended up landing this job. And the portion where I again made my own luck was that I had all these consulting experiences that were somewhat relevant to what this job was looking for. And I had practiced what I was going to say, so I was well equipped to sound confident on the phone. Um, so yeah, landed that job. While I was at that company, I built their operations sort of process management system. So they had 100 separate people doing different processes at their company, serving probably 17,000 plus clients every single day. And what we were able to do was basically figure out what each step in every single process in the business was. So this was probably thousands of steps. We were able to put that all those processes and steps into software and then have people follow along with the software so that everyone could perform as well as the best person. Because that's how we figured out what the processes were. We shadowed the best people. And then we were able to track as time went on, are these processes actually efficient? Where do people get hung up? Who's making mistakes? How can we actually automate some of these things? Where can we outsource them? And over the course of some years, the company was able to deliver these massive efficiency improvements. And they were able to do, at some point, 250 people's worth of work with only probably 110 people through automation and outsourcing. And I ended up leaving that job and joining a competitor as their first strategy and operations manager. That was another thing that happened through pure serendipity. It was in the middle of a pandemic. This company happened to be looking while I was looking, and their CEO followed me on Twitter, and he asked like, "Hey, I saw your job description changed. Are you looking?" And ultimately, that landed with me getting a job there. And I cycled through basically every non-technical position at that company. At some point, I ran HR, finance, IT, regulatory compliance, I supported our marketing department, our sales department, and then when I left, I was head of ops. Um, and then I decided, you know what, I'm going to take a break for a little while. So I did that. I hung out on the beach, took a summer off. That's the one thing that I really do miss about being in school. Say you guys get summers off. It's a spectacular thing. I hope you relish it. And then I started a company, and that company was a boot camp for operations professionals. There are a lot of places out there to learn about computer science, engineering, even like product management and other related disciplines. There's not a lot of ways to learn about the skill of operations management and building process and making companies more efficient in that way. And so I taught people about this, and my company was eventually bought out by Sylva, which is where I work now. Sylva is a private equity fund that buys and builds companies that serve professionals in terms of their learning and development, events, networking, things like that. And so I'm currently running our line of business that caters to strategy and operations professionals. We serve on the order of 1,000 customers that pay us directly. And then in our broader network, we've got probably on the order of 15,000 people that look to us for some of our free offerings like job search support, career coaching, things like that. And so, yeah, that has been my career pathway in a nutshell. Basically, at every juncture, I've been lucky more so than I've been intelligent. But part of the luck has been doing the right behaviors of putting things into the world, making things, trying things, writing blogs, being on social media, and actually trying to put quality content out there. And so my parting thought here is I think you guys are making the first right step by being in a hackathon because it encourages this habit of building things and making things. And when you make more than you consume, typically that's a magnet for good things to happen. It's a magnet for people to notice you, the things you're working on, and that's kind of how these interesting opportunities fall in your lap. And so, yeah, I will pause there.
Thank you so much. So we do have a couple questions in the chat.
Yeah.
Our first one is, what is the best way to gain entry into the tech industry in recent years? And how do I go about finding an internship in high school or in undergrad?
Yeah, really good question. It right now is an exceedingly difficult time to be looking for employment in the tech industry. Perhaps some of you have seen like the macro economy is getting whacked right now by a lot of different problems. The tech industry has been probably the worst performing sector of the bunch. I've watched probably 200,000 plus layoffs happen in the span of the last few months. So getting recruited right now is extremely difficult. I think probably in the next 2 or so years, hopefully the market will rebound. And so among the best ways to get involved in the industry is actually just try and find ways to do technical labor for your local community. And so one of the first ways that I learned and sold technical skills was I would run around Somerset, where RPS is located, and ask local business owners, hey, can I make you a website? Or like, can I make you a simple web app that collects potential leads or people who want to talk to you or something like that? And all you really need is one client to start. And if you make them really happy, they will refer you to other people and just keep cycling through that. And then eventually you'll have a lot of projects that you can point to and say, hey, I did this. These people are happy. They'll advocate for me. They'll vouch for me. And then when you go to apply for a company, then you have professional references, not just academic references. And there are people you can point to and say, like, hey, Alice from XYZ company is going to tell you all these amazing things I did for her. And so I started doing this back when I was probably like 19. And some of the clients I developed then, I still do work for part-time. So yeah, if you do a good job of that, it can become an income stream for quite a long time to come. The other thing that I would advise is try to develop genuine relationships with people who work at the types of places you want to work. And so if you want to be like, I don't know, a marketing manager in the payment processing industry, I would go on LinkedIn. I would try and search marketing manager, and then you can filter by current company. And then I would put in like Stripe and PayPal and all the other companies that I might be interested in. And then I'd look through all the people who seem interesting to me. And then I would find a handful who I genuinely admire, right? Maybe they've done a project or written a blog post or something that I have real praise for. Because a lot of talented people get tons and tons of inbound, right? Like they typically get probably 100 emails a day, probably a lot more than that of just cold spam on LinkedIn. And you want to cut through all of that noise. And so what you want to do is basically find someone where you can give them really targeted praise because everyone wants to be praised. You know, everyone wants to hear that someone thought they were smart or that they put something cool into the world. And so, you know, you might find a blog post about someone who said, I did a branding exercise at PayPal and like this was a project that affected 1 million customers that used one of our products. Um, you can go look at that and basically say, hey, I read your case study on this topic. It was amazing. I am looking to learn about branding and I've done a couple of academic projects on it, but I don't really know a lot. Would you be open to talking for 15 minutes about your experience? And then there's this acronym in the sales world that I really like called FAMBAM. And basically it summarizes to like follow a meeting, book a meeting. And so anytime you end your first meeting, you want to book your next meeting. And so if you, Daniel, like let's say we met up and you wanted to keep talking to me, you would say like, hey, how about we meet up a month from now? Does this time still work? And in those scenarios, a lot of people feel obligated to say yes because everyone wants to be polite. And so, yeah, I'll say like, hey, let's meet up May 14th at 6. And that way you've basically got me hooked. And that's how you win a mentor. And then eventually that person who's been your mentor, they feel invested in you. And then you go to ask them like, hey, I really have loved talking to you. I am so inspired. I actually want to work for your company. Would you be willing to refer me? That would mean so much. And if you do that, your chances of getting it basically instantly guarantees a phone screen if you get referred. And the thing that no one tells you in high school or college is that people want to refer other people because typically your company pays you for a referral. So if I was to say, like, hey, I'm going to refer Daniel to be a computer scientist at my company would probably pay me on the order of $1,000 to $5,000 if they hired Daniel. And no one tells you that, which is nuts. But yeah, people are really highly incented and like well compensated to refer people. So take advantage of this, right? Genuine praise, book meetings, build a mentor relationship, get them to refer you. Then that's your way in if you don't want to do the first thing I mentioned.
Thank you so much. That was great. Our next question is how easy or difficult or feasible is it to work remotely for a US company as a foreigner?
Oh, that's a really good question. Um, it really depends on the company. So some companies just don't sponsor visas, period. And that typically is the case at most startups, probably prior to like Series A or Series B. So if the company hasn't raised over $50 million, they're probably not going to sponsor a visa. The reason for this is that the legal fees associated to supporting a visa are extremely expensive. Like the lawyers have figured out this is a market they can just gouge prices on. And so sometimes like the legal fees might be even more than you're paying the person in salary, which is nuts to me, but that's kind of the way it goes. Um, and so the companies that you would be best off trying to get visa sponsorship at are, you know, once the market rebounds, your big tech companies, your Googles, your Facebooks, your et ceteras of the world. Um, and then big companies in other industries are actually probably easier to do this at because they've been less affected by what's happening in the economy. So, like, if you're looking at General Motors, for example, or you know Kellogg's, or one of those companies that's not widely considered a tech company, they all have technology departments. They all have engineering, product design, and then they also have marketing, sales, ops, et cetera, to support those new products that they're building. And often those companies will actually pay you a pretty commensurate amount to what you might earn at a Google or Facebook. And they're pretty good about visa sponsorship.
Great. Uh, we have a couple more questions.
Mhm.
Our next one would be, do you think the startup industry is moving away from Silicon Valley? And if so, where do you think it's going next?
Yeah. A lot of people have said or, prognosticated that tech would move away from Silicon Valley for decades now, right? People thought this after the dot-com bubble. People thought it after 2008. People think it now. I just don't think it's true. And the reason I don't think it's true is because it's not that the Bay Area is like special or has these magical computer scientists or founders or anything like that. Um, the couple of things that I believe cause the center of gravity to be there are one, the laws in California make it better for innovation to happen. So, in many states in the US and in other countries, there's this thing called a non compete agreement, which means that if you work for a company X and there's a competitor Y, your contract stipulates that you're not allowed to compete by joining company Y or any similar company for a period of some years. And that really stifles innovation because it also prevents you from founding a company that competes with your current company. California does not allow you to enforce non compete agreements. And so in California, you could say, hey, I work for Zoom and I think Zoom is a piece of crap and I'm going to go build a better Zoom. You can do that. That's totally fine in California. In other states, it's not very feasible, depending on how much they enforce their non-compete agreements in those states. So that's one. Two is the vast majority of venture capital dollars are just located in Silicon Valley, and you're not really going to get those people to move. Like if you've built your life in Silicon Valley and you're now worth 10 million to $1 billion, you've basically like built the bay in such a way that it's your place. Like you could do whatever you want there. There's an entire city called Atherton where Mark Andreessen is one of the richest people there. He runs a fund called Andreessen Horowitz. He founded Netscape. Like he's a very big deal. And like he single-handedly crushes local laws in Atherton simply because he can. And so, if I was kind of a de facto king of a town, I don't think I would move from there. Um, and the other sort of macro thing that's impacted this is a lot of people have tried to raise funds in the last decade, which is like the boom time of raising VC. There were a lot of new fund managers. Basically, all of those people have struggled to raise new funds, especially in places that are not Silicon Valley. So that all is kind of true. And then the other thing is you have proximity to Stanford. And so whether or not their talent is better or not, whatever, the stamp of a Stanford person on your team is extremely valuable still, right? That's why people compete for these schools that have like sub 5% acceptance rates. And so whether or not those people are legitimately more talented, the perception is still such that those types of schools are really sought after. And so for those reasons, I think you're not going to see the center of gravity shift out of the Bay for now. But what I am seeing a lot of is founders located in the Bay, and then they just hire remotely. Um, yeah, like the last, this company, my prior company, and the company before that have all done either started doing that or did that during the pandemic. So it's kind of a compromise, I suppose.
Awesome. Our next question is, what advice would you give to budding entrepreneurs, especially at finding investors despite the age?
Yeah. The thing investors respond to, especially today, is traction, meaning you want to be able to point to customers or other investors or just proof points that your business is something more than an idea or a toy. And that was the thing I did wrong, right? In my startup experience was, or at least the first time I started a startup, I tried to build something just because I thought it was cool and no one wanted it. So no traction. And that made it impossible to raise continuing funds, made it impossible to retain the staff, ultimately shuttered the business. So that all being said, whatever you are wanting to work on, build, etc., get customers. Just get commits, get letters of intent, get whatever you can that shows like there are actual dollars here. The more you can do that, the better terms you'll be able to raise at. Frankly, there is no substitute. Like nothing else makes up for having revenue. And really, like revenue funding is probably the best thing to do because it allows you to control your own destiny. And you might surprise yourself. Like you may be building something that's so interesting that you don't need to raise because so many people just want to throw their money at you that you're fine. Like you're making enough. Um, so yeah, I would say that's what you need. Like, and getting these customers is the same thing as how you would get the mentors, right? You would go say like you would find someone on LinkedIn who you think is the target for the thing you're building, or in your town or whatever. You would say, "Hey, person, I noticed you work in X industry. It seems like you blog a lot, and it seems like you're really influential and have all these very well thought out opinions. I'm building a product to make life for people like you much easier. Would you be willing to take 10 minutes to test it out?" And if they say yes, like show them, hopefully at this point, the product is great. If they say your product sucks, that's almost even better because you want to take all their feedback, go rebuild your product, and then go back to them and say, hey, like I listened to you. Can you try again? And keep doing that with a group of people until you've got something great. And then, then you're off to the races because then those people will be your champions and they'll say, hey, like this person is so responsive to our needs as an industry. They're doing whatever they can to make great product for us. Like I really recommend colleague, peer, whoever, try it out. Like they'll listen to you, they'll try and make your day better. Like they're really working for the betterment of our industry. And that's a lot how these things work. There was, I don't know if you guys have heard of this company Figma, but they make design plugins that they just got bought by Adobe for $20 billion. They did exactly what I'm describing for probably the span of 2 or 3 years without like making any money at all. They just iterated with customers for 3 years. And then they came out with the product and the product basically exploded. Like people signed up left and right.
Actually, yeah, Figma, we're actually using that to develop the website. It's funny you mentioned that.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah, we love using Figma. And we have one more quick question, and
Sure.
that would be, what advice would you give to your 15 or 16-year-old self? And I guess what steps would you advise a student or a young person to take in high school to get into a similar space as you?
Yeah. If I was looking back on my life, I would probably tell myself first off, don't fall into the lure of venture capital. It is extremely attractive, right? It's very sexy, it's very prestigious, but to some extent, like it's fake money, and it's not an indicator that your business will be successful. I've angel invested. My wife has worked in VC. 90+% of the investments just fail outright, and that's why my focus is so much on building something that people want and funding your business via revenue, because then you're actually taking home money. And if you're the owner of the company, you can pocket everything that doesn't go towards the maintenance of the business and salaries. And so there are people running quiet businesses in your hometown who are cleaning up like multiple millions of dollars a year. And they're just doing unsexy, boring stuff. And my advice to people is figure out what those unsexy things are, build software experiences to make them better, bundle up the software and the delivery of whatever that product or service is, and you will mint money. The first startup I worked for after coming out of consulting did this in the insurance space. And they basically went from nothing to being a $4 billion valuation company in the span of 6 years, I think. Yeah, it's nuts. So focus on real customers, focus on making money. That's the advice.
Thank you so much. And that was our last question. And I think we've actually gone a little bit over on time. But on behalf of Mega, thank you so much for giving your expertise and all your advice. This was super valuable to both the participants and to us Mega organizers as well. We greatly appreciate all the advice and info you've given us today. So
Cool.
thank you so much, and have a great night.
Yeah, happy to be here and have a great rest of your hackathon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So moving on to our next speaker, Chol will be introducing Avi Patel, CEO of Nitrility.
Okay. Did we admit Avi yet?
Yes, I just
Oh, there
did.
we go. Okay.
Hey guys, can you hear me all right?
Yes,
Yep.
we can.
Perfect.
Okay. So my name is Choli, and with me here today is our next guest speaker, CEO and founder of Nitrility, Avi Patel. Nitrility is a tech startup working in the music and entertainment space that recently reached a $10 million valuation, with artists such as Post Malone, Ariana Grande, and Dua Lipa on the platform. Make sure to send your questions in the chat when the Q&A session begins, and Avi will answer them. So without further ado, let's welcome Avi Patel.
Hey guys, nice to meet you. Happy to see that there's so many participants. And again, I'm open for any questions, and feel free to ask me really anything.
So Avi, could you maybe introduce yourself, your background, and how you got into entrepreneurship?
For sure. I used to go to Rutgers Prep, and I think a lot of participants here are from the school. But I graduated year 2021, and I was in college for around 2 weeks. 2 weeks before actually dropping most of my classes. But essentially what happened was I started my first company, which was a celebrity NFT agency. That got me really involved in the Web3 space, as well as getting involved in high profile cases, as well as the creator space. And then I fell in love with it almost instantly. And after that, I kind of committed, very stupidly, by the way, but I committed almost instantly to dropping most of my classes. And then following the next semester, I took one class. And then through the entire year after I pretty much was not doing college, ended up raising a lot of capital that was able to sustain our growth. And then after that, we ended up, going full commit, the entire team and the rest of the team members. And then the year after, due to some family issues and other reasons, I came back to college. But after we raised our next round, then I ended up leaving. So that's where we're at right now. Other than that, Nitrility is a platform that's changing the way the licensing industry works. And the way that started was as a result of me having a problem with my first startup. We were going to sell a collection, an NFT collection, for a celebrity called Lon Galani. He was an MMA fighter in Hong Kong, and he was a pretty big dude. And the collection was actually going to go for around 3.2 million. And we had a buyer as well. But the entire promotional line for the collection, all the marketing, all of that, we use music in the YouTube videos, Twitch streams, everything like that. And what ended up happening was that we had a license for that music. If you want to use music in a YouTube video, by the way, you have to license that music. A license is basically like a contract saying that you can use the song. And we had the license. The problem was that YouTube, Twitch, and all the other social media platforms had no idea we owned the license. And that's a problem that a lot of creators face. So what ended up happening was the entire promotional line got taken down and the collection did no sales. And we ended up having to close the entire company as a result. Almost instantly after that happened, I thought of the idea for Nitrility. And I realized the application of Web3 tech to the actual company that I have right now, which is Nitrility, was very, very beneficial. And the way that you can tokenize licenses and make them NFTs, and then those NFTs can now be authenticated by the platforms out there like YouTube, Twitch, etc. It is such a beneficial thing that is needed in the space, which is why we've grown so much. So yeah.
Awesome. So can you explain more about Nitrility and how you developed it into a successful startup, and also the role of not having a college education? Has that affected you detrimentally, or has that actually helped you in developing that business?
I do think that not having a college education wasn't too big of a factor, but I think it is a factor that can be considered. As for what I suggest to people is that I don't think you should value the education of school if you have the knowledge to start something on your own. But again, you should always try to value it. For example, I recommend everyone to go to college, right? I never say just drop out of it. I think that's a really stupid thing to say. And I think it's what a lot of very successful entrepreneurs say very irresponsibly, like Gary Vee, there's plenty I can name, But I think going to college just to have an example and understand, look, is this for me? Do I have the commitment to escape? Is better than just going better than just not going, dropping out, and then starting something on your own. Because again, if you fail, you've staked your entire life on it, basically. That's a risk that most people aren't willing to take. And if you do take that risk, you have to be very, very committed to what you're doing. And you can only know that you have the commitment if you're in college and you realize the environment I'm in is not something that I enjoy. And then you want to, branch off and start something on your own. As for starting on your own, it's tough, but it's not something that's impossible for really anyone. I think everyone has the capacity to do it. Everyone's good at something, right? So the main thing I'd recommend is put yourself in a position that forces you to succeed, So for example, when I was starting the first company, I messaged 1,000 celebrities on Instagram, not knowing what I was doing, by the way. I sent them like a paragraph and one of them responded. And I realized that, look, if I don't capitalize on this one response, I don't act perfectly, I'm going to get clowned. I was not doing any classes at the time. I pretty much didn't go to any of my classes during the 2 weeks I was doing that. And I knew that if I didn't succeed at this one thing, it would be a very big detriment. So generally speaking, I would put yourself in a position where you have to do well. Otherwise, if you fail, it is going to be a very big problem, And that's how I've lived by, when it comes to even operations right now. I'll put myself in a position where if I can't do what I say I have to do, then it'll all fail and crumble. And up to date, I've pushed past my limits, and everyone on my team has also done the same, and we've kind of gone through and done pretty well. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So with all these long work days working as an entrepreneur, how do you balance personal and professional life? What are some tips you have to keep yourself healthy and active while working as an entrepreneur?
If you're a tech founder, not even. If you're any founder, you're going to be at your desk pretty much all day. I'm going to be honest. I think founders and CEOs, especially the good ones, are the ones that take most of the team's responsibility and then use the team as specific outlets. So for example, if you have a tech company like mine, right? You have a development team, you have your legal team, you have a partnership team, onboarding team, et cetera, et cetera. The CEO is the one that's handling the organization for every aspect of the operations and the operations for certain aspects as well. Like I do all the marketing, for example, right? And all the outreach and calling, and then I structure the code, and then as well as managing the team and learning a lot from a lot of team members that have expertise that I don't. So it takes up a lot of my time, right? In order to balance things, I feel like balance is used the wrong way. People like to picture it as an even scale, making sure that you're even on both sides. That's not what balance is. Balance is your ability to tip the scales however you want to tip them, in order to get what your goal is. For example, let's say you want to have a tech startup, right? You have to put in long hours, very, very long hours during the day. And that isn't technically an even scale of balance, considering that, I could spend 50% of the day doing something relaxing and 50% working. That's an even scale, but in order to succeed, you can't have an even scale. So the scale goes like this. I'll be working pretty much all day. But the time that I spend relaxing, I maximize as much as possible. I will overstimulate myself with relaxation, if you can say it like that, right? And I've set up my life in a way that the time that I do spend relaxing and chilling really it fulfills me, basically. And that doesn't come with having a lot of friends. That doesn't come with having so much stuff going on in your life, like parties and everything. That comes with, having things that mean something to you, just going on, and something you can spend time at in a very short amount of time, but also fill that relaxation requirement to stabilize your balance while you're working such long hours. And working out is always a good thing. Keep your body healthy. Make sure that you're in the gym, working out, playing a sport is fine, honestly, having a hobby, networking. I mean, there's a lot of things that can relax you, but you're going to have to learn to enjoy your work at the end of the day. The work you're doing should be a level of relaxation, and you shouldn't have stress when you're working at all. If you're stressing when you're working, then it doesn't mean you're having fun. So that's the biggest thing I recommend.
For sure. Thanks for that insight. Yeah, so my last question here. How should a high schooler like the viewers today get started in entrepreneurship? And should they simply just start working and making a business, or are there any skills or experience they need to have before starting a business themselves?
So I think you should have some level of public skills. Let's say you're buried in video games all day. Don't get me wrong, I was the same. I was playing video games during class and stuff pretty much all day, right? The point I'm trying to say is that if you don't have some level of innate social ability and aptitude, then you're going to have a tough time in the entrepreneurial space. But then again, throwing yourself at that space and having just the perseverance to keep going, even if you're put down constantly, which is what is going to happen regardless, right? Will kind of hone your skills. So I think 90% of the time you should throw yourself into it. I think the other 10% of the time, You should really sit back and try to develop yourself and figure out your problems before you can handle someone else's, you know? So as for starting, that is not as hard as it seems. Again, the way I started was I was like, okay, there's a bunch of really, really famous people that have a lot of money, which wasn't the point, but they're also very, very skilled in the things they do. And I was like, I wonder how they develop the skills. So the first step is to associate yourself with those people. I DM'd 1,000 celebrities, like I said, one of them responded. And off of that, everything kind of was a chain reaction. I thank that guy pretty much every day. But the point is that you will get lucky if you put yourself in a position to receive the luck. So again, just keep at it, put yourself in a position to succeed. And keep on messaging people that are, you know, bigger than you, people that you've looked up to, and eventually someone's going to respond. And as for what to do and how to start, the first company that I recommend starting for anyone is a service-based startup. The startup should be doing something for someone. Apple's founders did it, Microsoft's founder did it. The list goes on and on. The second company you start should be a platform, something that can build a legacy. But the first platform, like I said, should be something related to a market that's booming right now. So it's very easy to get into. In my honest opinion on that is AI right now. If you want to get into anything and start something today, look into something that's AI and look into something that's service related. Something that you can offer to other people of high presence, high status, so you can get those connections that are also very, very connected to VCs, et cetera, right? And essentially create a product in AI, because that is the most popular field right now. It's the easiest to get into, that can help those direct individuals. After like 2 weeks of thinking, if you still can't like set on idea or something like that, set on the best one that you thought of in those 2 weeks. Jot every idea you think down in 2 weeks, set on idea, and then just start DMing people, start getting at it. You'd be surprised. Your instincts kind of take over and you'll trigger fight or flight. And most of the time you choose fight if you do well, and you'll end up going through with it. So that's my suggestion on that.
Great. Thank you so much for the advice. Now for the Q&A session where Dan will read you some questions.
Yeah, so our first question for you from the chat is, do you think that blockchain or / crypto hype has gone down after FTX and Coinbase?
Absolutely. It's not even just that. I mean, the blockchain space is terrible. I tell people this every single day. Don't use Web3 for the hype. It is just the worst thing you could possibly do. I was on a podcast this morning and I talked about this as well, but the Web3 space is not going anywhere when it comes to just the hype part of it. I think there are very specific channels that are very good for the tech side of things, but the main aspect of it is very bad. Mostly Ponzi scheme. And this is coming from a tech owner in the crypto space. I'm telling you, like, the reason we use NFTs, which is the only reason we use it, is because it is necessary for the tech to function the way it does, and for YouTube and all these other platforms to authenticate the licenses on our marketplace. Other than that, do not bet any cards on crypto. It's probably going to go up. I'm going to be honest. It's going to go up in value, but that's just monetary value. That doesn't, the tech in itself is good for authenticating assets. That is all it's used for. It's nothing else. And decentralization of payments, but it's not there for the increase or decrease of a value system. And the banks just crashed. So obviously it's going to go up. I'm not going to lie. As for after the Silicon Valley Bank crash, but that's not the point. It doesn't, just because the value went up doesn't mean the tech is any better than it is, you know?
Thank you.
Of course.
Our next question is, do you have any book recommendations?
I don't read too much. I think getting fed information to you that's not off of your own opinions is really tough. But I think there is one book that is very, very good. I think it's banned a couple places, but it's called The 48 Laws of Power. Take a read at that. If you're in the business space or really anything, and you want to get better at really being able to understand people, because that's what you're dealing with every day, that book will teach you how to perfectly navigate any environment that you're in, especially if you take the skills to heart in there. 48 Laws of Power, look it up, great book. I'm pretty sure there's a free online PDF if you look it up.
Awesome, thank you. And another question is, do you think that a place like China or India is the next startup space? And do you think the US is too saturated at the moment?
I think India has a lot going for it when it comes to labor force, because there are very skilled people in India, but and the same thing goes for China. And I think China is a little bit better at this actually. But the business acumen of the top are primarily focused on just monetary gain. They're not there for an actual, startup space. And there are some like very, very good startups, like founders, especially like Avi Patel, who founded Zepto. He came from Dubai, I'm pretty sure. But he was in India for a long period of time. But that dude, for example, has not only very good business acumen, but he's there for not only just the cash, but also developing a good product. But that's very, very rare. And I think we've seen that in recent years. The US market may be doing not too good right now, but it's developed hands down some of the best founders and CEOs of all time. And I don't think that's going to change in a while. But I do think there will be rare occurrences and maybe even common ones that are coming from other countries that are developing very, very good startups as well. So yeah.
Thank you.
Of course.
Another question is, what areas do you think you need improvement in your space? And what are some of the problems that you face, or what is the hardest problem that you faced in your career?
For the space itself, I think the biggest improvement that needs to be made is that the tech is, again, like I said, crypto is being used way too much for the hype. I think that was a problem even last year. It was the biggest problem last year. That's why so many investors lost so much money on the crypto space, because it was built on celebrity endorsements, people like endorsing the project, and less on the tech that was being used behind it. As for problems in the entrepreneurial space, I'm not sure if that's what you're asking, but I assume so. As for problems in the entrepreneurial space, it has to come down to lack of access to good venture capitalists. Most of these venture capitalists are, they're again feeding into the issue of just playing into the hype, right? Like, there's a kid I know that changed his domain username to .ai and then decided to put like some sub branch of his company into an AI company. He was having trouble financing a company for 6 months. The second he did that, a month later, he got financing. So the hype aspect of VC is very, very tough. And venture capitalists have issues with that. But I think it's also a good thing, because any good founder can navigate that space and find the right VC for them, instead of just looking for any random firm that's willing to throw them money, which is a big problem why companies get taken over and companies end up dying, because they have the wrong VCs backing them. And we've done a very good job with that, because we got down on the crypto crash and crypto was losing all of its investors. And then we found someone that still believed in the company itself that financed a pre-seed round. And we're going to do the same thing when we're financing our seed round very, very soon. So I'm saying that it's a good and a bad thing, but generally speaking, that's something that needs to be improved for sure on the VC side of things.
Thank you. Another question is, how do you meet investors, and what should you say to them, and how should you connect?
I think the rule of thumb is that you don't meet the investors. The investors find you if you do it right. Okay. When we started the company, I really thought the same. I thought, like, listen, I got to message 1,000 investors and someone's going to come, right? But nowadays, I'm realizing that if you don't have the right partnerships in place for your company and the right amount of marketing, the right amount of, you need perfect, like literal perfection in the way you create your slide deck, the way you've email structured, the way you've done everything when it comes to marketing, partnerships, outreach, your legal structure, all of it. And the investor will find you after that. I think venture capital only works in that way. Otherwise, having venture capitalists just give you money and then your company ends up failing because you don't have the right infrastructure in place is the reason why there's so much issues. People get cut out of their entire lives. I know a founder at UIUC that got financing from Contrary Capital and his company ended up going downhill after that. And he's just never been the same, never got back in the entrepreneurial space, just been really down recently. I mean, the guy is struggling, but that's because he was cut off from pretty much every connection he had because he got into the space and then got screwed over by VCs. So VCs should not be the issue. You shouldn't even focus on it. Focusing on creating the product from scratch with zero money should be the possible solution to everything. Again, like everything I do, all of our marketing's for free. I mean, if you have perfect word choice when reaching out to people and perfect word choice when talking to people, you can do anything you want. So again, it's about mastering what you can do right now without asking for anything at all,
Great. Another question is, could you share any advice or strategies for building a successful online business on a limited budget or with limited resources?
That's what I was just talking about. So like I said, the first and most important thing is to sell, structure an offer. It's really the most important thing is the offer itself, right? I had the idea of Nitrility, right? And we're not even launched yet. We're launching at the end of this year. And I do this even to this day, but you create the idea and then you create the vision that other people want to invest in. Once you have that vision in your head, you create a word structure that very well portrays that vision, right? Nowadays, all I got to do is DM people on Instagram, right? I can DM artists, celebrities, whoever it is. And if anyone wants advice how to do that, you can get in contact with anyone like this as long as your Instagram looks good. Go to one of their posts, go to their comment section, say, hey, how's it going? I'd love to chat. Check your DMs. And then send them on DMs, hey, what's up? They'll respond 99% of the time. 1 to 5 million followers, it doesn't matter, as long as you have a good looking Instagram page, which can be created over time. It just has to look good. It doesn't have to have a crazy following count or anything like that, but the page has to look nice, the designs and all of that. So learn how to design a bit, go on canva.com, render forest, any AI generation, image generation tools like Midjourney, create a good profile, make yourself look credible and good, get some posts up, get some marketing for it. After that, you can then contact whoever you want that you think will put you in a better position. And then once you have the vision in your head, structure an offer that you can offer to that person completely for free. For example, and I'll tell you this, our artists right now, all I tell them is like, listen, you can come on the marketplace when we launch completely for free for the first month. And that's our offer to 90% of our partners, right? And essentially that's garnered so much traction that we've signed over 1,000 artists just off of one phone call. And make it non-exclusive. What you want to do is make it so that the person that you're speaking to has nothing to lose. You don't want to maximize the benefit for them. You want to maximize the least amount of issues that they can have. You want to make sure that they have no problem signing with you or partnering with you or helping you out, right? My friend run a clothing company, and I told him, like, look, dude, like, you need to get in touch with people and get pictures of your clothing on celebrities and then put that on your Instagram page. I told him, DM 100 celebrities, get a post up first. He got one post up. It looked very nice. He DM'd 100 celebrities. 60 of them responded using the strategy I told you. And then after that, he sent out 60 t-shirts to all of them. They all took pictures, very nice looking, and he posted them on his Instagram. Done. Company was off the chains after that, and he started getting sales immediately. So you can do everything for free. Again, you just have to be very smart with it. And anyone that is thinking that, oh, I need cash to start something is greatly mistaken.
Thank you for that. One last question from the chat, and there are more now. How do you know when to take a break, and what do you do to relax?
If it's in the morning and you're like, I need to take a break, you don't take a break. That's when you tell yourself, I need to go outside and do a 4-mile run or something like that, right? You need to force yourself to just do work when you're really, really out of it, you know? But at the end of the day, when you've gone through your busy day, you need to have a set time for break. I personally, I do MMA. That's my thing. That's my break, right? I can focus on one thing. I don't have to worry about anything else around me. I can hit a bag, basically, right? So have a set time for a break. 2-3 hours, I think, having activity time, something where you can go out with friends, maybe that close friend that you have. If you have a significant partner, go out with them. If you have a set time, just like do some activity or sport, have that set time for that. But discipline is hands down the most important thing when it comes to having good time management. Like if you're going out of your way and you know, trying to give yourself an excuse to do a break, you're not going to make it. And I did it for a long time. So again, I can't fault anyone that does, but I'm saying from the enlightened perspective of someone that's gone through the issues of doing that, don't take a break when you want to take a break. That's what I'm trying to say. Take a break when you know you need it. The relaxation point of it is only to fulfill the balance. Sometimes the best move in a situation is to relax, right? But that is not something you want. It's something that you quite literally need. You only take a break when you need it. And that's to fulfill that balance that I was talking about before.
Great. And this kind of builds off of that. What does a day in the life look like for a tech startup entrepreneur?
My day's kind of weird, but I'll give it to you anyways. I wouldn't generalize it to every tech startup entrepreneur, but my days usually I'll wake up at around 11 o'clock. And then I'll end up having breakfast real fast and I'll have lunch at around 4. But in the meantime, I'll usually be doing our marketing work. And our marketing work consists of tweeting, you know, responding to DMs, sending out DMs, and then doing outreach with our current connections and logging all the data. And then later on in the day, it goes into more specific tasks and managing operations with the entire team and getting in contact with everyone and making sure everyone's organized during the day is super, super substantial and important. And setting a time at the end of the day for not only just like Zen, but also just to understand what you want to do with your next day and having a planning, and also understanding, you know, what new ideas you want to get into is super important. So I'll usually do that for around 2 to 3 hours at the end of the day, but in the middle of the day, it's normal operations, development, any sort of marketing stuff you have to do. We're usually posting pretty much every single day on the Instagram, and that's what's garnered us a lot of attention. But talking to people is what I do primarily every day. I mean, the point is to expand your network as big as possible and have outlets of support that can help you in any way you can, right? And that means that you have to be constantly talking to them as a friend, right? Like our marketing guy, he's from Turkey, he's this 17-year-old kid. He's not only a marketing guy, and I don't just reach out to him whenever I need something from him, right? That's not how you build relationships. You have to be talking to these people in your network pretty much every single day, all day. And making sure that you're caring about them and helping them for free, because that's what develops a relationship with them. And like I said, you're putting out good balance into the world, and it'll come back straight to you, you know? So that's what I do primarily the whole day. And then I'll work at around 3 hours at night, and I'll crash probably at like 4 a.m. and then start the next day again. Sleep is super important too. So if you're not like, you have a tough time sleeping and like instantly sleeping when you go to sleep, take the extra time to try to sleep earlier and get that habit. Like 4 a.m. to 11 a.m. Is fine. That's still 7 hours, right? But if I were to like be in bed, like tossing and turning for 2 hours straight from 6 o'clock to 11 a.m., that's a horrible, like that can take years off your lifespan. So you have to kind of maximize every aspect of your life when it comes to health, your performance, when it comes to the work, as well as like your physical capacity. People know this, and I think people don't like to see it like this, but you have to look good and you have to act good and you have to be next to perfect in every interaction if you want the best coming out of it. And that comes with presenting nicely, that comes with speaking nicely, that comes with not stuttering. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that goes into it, but every aspect of your life during the day has to be perfectly maximized in order to output that general sense of perfection, you know?
Yeah. Our last question is, do you have any advice for cold contacting or like cold emailing? And how do you get someone to really notice you in your in an email?
Yeah, so I have some advice on this because I've done so much of it. I'll get into this a little bit, but first thing I'll say is don't do it. It's a horrible idea. Cold contacting is dying. I'm not gonna lie. Cold contacting in the sense of just sending like a blank email or giving them like a single phone call. It's just not the play. I'm not gonna lie. Like getting someone's number, just cold contacting them, it's not the play. It's better to go through a social outlet because they can at least vet you, right? Like if you're messaging, for example, you want to put yourself in the position of the person that you're messaging always, right? Let's say you have someone on the other side that's like a basketball player, for example, and they get a message from some random person that says, "Oh, I want you to endorse my brand," and you have nothing in there that says what the brand is. Not to mention, it's from an email. It's words on a paper. There's no visuals to go with it. It's very tough, right? Instead, go, okay, well, I'm just going to DM him from my Instagram, right? He can check on my profile, see if it looks cool, see my credibility. I can establish that credibility, and now he can have the actual intention to respond because he knows that we're not just some random, right? But aside from that, if you do want to cold contact people, look up rocketreach.com, subscribe to it. You can get any phone number of any celebrity in the entire world in 5.5 seconds tops. You can look that up right now. And there's plenty of other phone books out there. You can, if you want to there's a lot of backhand stuff that is shamed upon in the industry, but if you use it right, it's a tool. So Rocket Reach if you want to, but not my recommendation. I tried it for literally like 2 months, every single day, cold calling as many celebrities as possible. I think out of like 3,000 people I contacted 1 month, quite literally 25 of them were worth it. So not the play. It's not the play. And the ratio for Instagram is a lot better. It's 80% plus if you do it right. So yeah.
All right, got it. Thank you so much, Avi, for your insightful advice.
Of course.
And I'm turning it over to our next guest speaker here.
Later, guys.
Have a great night,
Yep.
Avi.
You too.
You as well.
Agni, would you like to take it away?
Yep. Mr. Whaley, can you hear me?
I sure can. Hopefully you can hear me.
Wonderful. So, hello all participants and hello all speakers. I want to introduce Mr. Brian Whaley. He is currently the VP at Engineering at American Express, and he has a lot of experience in the IT field, as well as integrating with Digital Wallet as well. So we really appreciate your time and really thank you for giving us the opportunity to share your experience as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the introduction. A little bit about me. Obviously, my name is Brian Whaley. I'm a graduate of the class of 1991. For those who know him, Larry Santawasso, the athletic director and the varsity baseball head coach. He and I played baseball together. He and I graduated together. And so after I graduated from Rutgers Prep, I followed a very unique path. I graduated from Rutgers University with a bachelor's in art and art history. And I also received my master's of information systems from I've always been very interested in photography technology field, primarily in the media, the finance, pharma, and telecom industries. But my focus has always been on consumer-facing web technology, which is really the place where technology touches the customer and that takes advantage of the creative side as well as the technical side of my passions. And I've always had a growing level of responsibility throughout my career. I was a developer for quite a long time, and that led me into project management, and I became a people leader. And then slowly, as my career developed, it's grown into the current position that I have, where I'm a vice president at American Express, and I lead a team of 200 people building the applications that our customers use to apply for new credit cards.
Mr. Willie, you're lagging a little bit.
A little bit about hackathons and their history. They're about 10 years ago. And it developed out of two different places where small companies wanted to innovate very, very quickly. And startups were able to have a hackathon type environment where they would try something, they would get together in if it worked. And so it was a very innovative, and large companies wanted to try and share. And so it's a way for companies, large companies, to set time aside for innovation too. And as you're seeing today, even the educational institutions take advantage of hackathons. It's very common for colleges to host hackathons to demonstrate the skills of those who are graduating. But even today and this weekend, you're going to see where high schools can take advantage of that and build the muscles that you need to use during a hackathon. And so I will tell you that I've been participating 5 years. I've had hackathons that I've hosted in varying sizes and scopes. Some of the first hackathons I had were just within my team, so just 8 or 10 people. In the last few years, I've had hackathons that I've hosted with 50 people or 500 people, and every year American Express hosts a hackathon that usually includes thousands of people at a time. And I'm part of the committee that manages that hackathon every year. So what I really like about the hackathons are the creativity, the ability to set themes and get colleagues engaged and excited about their work again. So hackathons are in the best interest of companies to run. There's a lot of things that companies get out of a hackathon. They get the opportunity to crowdsource lots of cool ideas. They drive innovation internally. They develop and maintain a community of developers that stay connected and understand what each other is doing across a large organization. They break down corporate culture barriers to work together. They reinforce the brand and build a brand of technology, even for a company that's not a technology company like American Express. You can attract top talent in the industry. You can motivate your colleagues or remotivate colleagues. And it's an opportunity to give back to the local communities, give back to open source technologies, to give back to nonprofits. And so companies get a lot out of hackathons. But what I wanted to talk a little bit about today was, what are you going to get out of a hackathon? Right? All of you are going to be participating in the hackathon this weekend. And what are you going to get out of it? What should you focus on? And so the first thing is that winning means you're going to get prizes, and prizes are cool. Sometimes those are, trophies or awards. They could be cash scholarships. They could be freebies. And so every hackathon has a different prize. And so you can look for hackathons and participate very specifically because of the prizes. You can also gain a sense of accomplishment by participating in a hackathon and winning. You can gain that sense of, look at what I've achieved, and be very proud of that. But even if you don't finish, even if you don't complete your idea, you may still walk away learning a lot, and that's a new kind of accomplishment. You get to showcase your current skills, take the skills that you've built in the classroom and with your colleagues or your student partners, and bring them as a toolbox into a hackathon and leverage those hard skills like the technology languages that you may learn, or the infrastructure and networking skills you may have, as well as the soft skills like interpersonal relations and presentation skills and things like that. And you bring all of those skills with you to the hackathon, and you can showcase them. But the hackathons also give you an opportunity to work outside of your comfort zone. You can challenge yourself. You can take risks and do things you've never done before. Hackathons also give you an opportunity to work outside of your comfort zone. Try new technology, challenge yourself, and see what happens, and do things you've never done before. And you can use those as opportunities to new ideas, new technical skills, challenge yourself. And so between the needs of the project and the skills that your other teammates or classmates bring to the team, you may need to come to grips with the fact that you need to use the skills that your other teammates or classmates bring. And that's very exciting, and it's a real opportunity for you to learn something new, and you should embrace. And that's very exciting, and it's a real opportunity for you to part of hackathons are, and you should embrace improving your soft skills, your presentation skills, showing and demonstrating the hard work that you've done, building relationships very quickly with your other teammates, and working in a team dynamic to implement and complete your project. You have to adapt to changing situations very quickly and collaborate under pressure to deliver. You have to adapt. And so you build your soft skills while you're building your technology skills at the same time. And a hackathon is also a chance to network. You get to meet new judges, you get to collaborate with new people, and your network will grow based on the professionals and the students that you get to work with. For example, I know that MEGA is actually reaching across multiple schools, and so you're going to have the opportunity to collaborate with students outside of just the school that you're from. You can improve your CV by participating in the hackathon. This is something that you can use to demonstrate your skills to a college or to a summer job, or even to your first position once you complete college. Including a hackathon project on your resume or awards that you've won is extremely common and important for you to do. And so participating in hackathons can contribute to some of your first opportunities outside of college. And as I mentioned earlier, hackathons are really a chance to try new things and open your eyes to new career choices. So today, you may be a JavaScript developer, a React developer, an Angular developer, but you may learn that you really like working in non-relational DBs and you decide you like Mongo. Or you may decide that some of the networking and infrastructure parts of the project, the deployment and the CI/CD pipeline that you're going to build, may be something that's very interesting to you. Or you may decide that you really like the UI design of the project, or you may want to focus on what are the requirements and have we met the business needs, right? And each one of those is an opportunity for you to try a new role and see what it's like in a real example to participate in those kind of careers, even before you're put into a position outside of school. And as you try those career choices, you may be taking steps towards entrepreneurship. And you may even come up with an idea that's something that you can take even beyond school and build your own company around an idea that you may develop. And one of the last things that you can take of the MEGA Hack to the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And you can do a lot of research about what that looks like, but it very clearly states right on the MEGA Hack website that infusing STEM and the UN SDGs, the annual hackathon raises awareness for global welfare while instilling passion in computer science. And so this hackathon itself is going to be a phenomenal opportunity for you to do good, even beyond the project that you're working on. So just to wrap all of that up, tomorrow the hackathon begins and the theme will be announced. And so I want each one of you to focus on having fun, working together, get as much out of the hackathon as you can with the suggestions that I've made, sustainable development goals. So good luck to everybody, and congratulations to all of those participating.
Thank you so much, Mr. Whaley, for your speech. There's a few questions on our YouTube Live that, if you have time, I'll ask. One of them is, how should participants organize their ideas and present their innovations and projects effectively?
Right. So, so when you're organizing your ideas, one of the suggestions that I have is to think about your project in phases, right? You're going to be under extreme time pressure. So think about what the minimum amount is that will demonstrate your idea and focus on delivering that first. And then if you have more time, what else could you do? And if you have even more time, what else can you do, right? So think about the minimum necessary to show your idea and then work from that, right? So that's going to create a really great framework for coming up with your plan. Now, to demonstrate the ideas, I like to make sure that all of the teammates get an opportunity to present. And so I typically break down a presentation for a hackathon into a few different sections. First off, what problem are you trying to solve? Can you give an example of that problem? How did you come up with the idea for the solution? And what does the solution look like? And try and make it a live demo. In the hackathons that I've participated in, there's typically a time limit for your demo. Our time limit has been anywhere between 5 minutes and 15 minutes. And I aim for about half of that, because you're going to have questions, people are going to go over. And so I typically encourage people to aim for half of the time for the presentation and half for either the live demo going wrong or something else, so that you're always prepared and ready.
Makes sense. And thanks for the wonderful answer as well. The next question in the chat is that it's talking more about on your career side and your experience side. So they were wondering, you're the VP at American Express, which is a very huge position, and you're managing a lot of teams. So we're wondering how you manage these a lot of diverse, varied teams very effectively.
Yeah. So so one of the things that I like to focus on is a quote from Steve Jobs, and I can't remember the quote directly, but what he says is, "Why would I hire somebody really smart and then tell them what to do? I like to hire people who are really smart so that they can tell me what to do." And that is kind of one of the tenets of how I like to manage people. Folks that are hired in, they're subject matter experts. They know the technology, they know the product, they know the field, right? My job is to listen to them, to support them, and to find ways for them to be as successful as possible. And idea, my job is to be focusing on the people and their ideas and what they want to do for their careers and how they can help American Express and the product we offer. So it's really about focusing on people.
Wonderful, thank you. I think that answer touched a little bit on the project management side as well. So I think it would be helpful to one of the person who asked the question as well. The next question is, what are some projects or achievements that you are proud of or excited about in your current or previous roles?
Sure. So one of the things that I'm most excited about in my current role is this is the first time in my role that all of the different acquisition departments have been rolled up into one person. And so there's an opportunity for all of the teams to find efficiencies and to collaborate and work together on the same idea at the same time. And so that's really, really exciting. I think it's a great example of what the successes that I've had in the past have been. It's always been about collaboration and momentum. The more I can get the same people with the same idea working on the same thing at the same time, the more success I've been able to drive. And so it's really been about persuasion and communication and a focus on the people that I'm working with. So that's true for my success at other companies and even a role as a developer when I'm trying to convince my product counterpart that this is the right way to do it. This is an idea I have. This is going to make the process better for our customers. It's all about persuasion. It's all about working together and collaborating. And so those are the things that people need to focus on, even beyond their technology skills. That's going to be really important for their success.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like the soft skills also play, and I guess equally or important role as well. In addition to like the hardcore technology skills as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Other question I got was that, how has your art education helped influence your outlook on the technology world? Because I think that perspective, especially on like user design and everything, would be extremely unique as well. Because I think I was reading a long time ago that Steve Jobs took like a calligraphy class, and that art education actually helped him a lot in creating Apple. So how did your art education help your journey?
Sure. So I think that my interest and background in art and the creative skills helped in two very specific ways. The first way is I was building websites before the idea of user experience or the actual jobs of user experience designers existed. And so somebody with an art background allowed me the opportunity to think about what is the impact of how something looks to a customer to be appealing to use or easy to use, right? And so heuristic evaluation and human-centered design fell into the same kind of arena as the UI designer. You know, what colors am I using? What stands out on the page? What's easiest to see and click on? How am I persuading the customer, right? So those are things that impacted my career very early on as part of my art background. And something that I look back on is that I think the artistic process as a creative process is very similar to debugging. You have to find the problem, and sometimes that's it's not very straightforward where that bug is. It might be in a very strange piece of code or an obscure piece of code, something that you haven't touched in a long time, or it could be in a place that you never expect. And so the out of the box thinking, the creative thinking has helped me in a lot of the technical evaluation that I need to do as part of my job. And so I find that to be a great place where the technology and the creative skills that I've developed kind of overlap. So those are two examples.
Wonderful. The next question I have is that how do you ensure that an online applications that you build are secure, reliable, and user-friendly for both new and like existing customers across these many different markets?
Sure. So, so in my current role, it's really interesting. So every country has a completely different set of laws that manage what people expect. So as a financial institution, we have to meet compliance regulations for every company. So those laws turn into very specific ways that we have to build our applications. At the same time, something like accessibility and the WCAG rules about how to build an accessible application become really important for our customers. And so we have to meet federal regulations at the same time that we have to meet accessibility rules for our customers. And at the same time, we have to meet the needs of our business for marketing purposes. And so it's a blend, it's a difficult blend of all of them. And just like project management, while we're coming up with a plan, my advice is always to tackle the thing that you need to tackle first. What has the most recent deadline? Is it a compliance deadline? Is it a deadline for a competing product that you're trying to deliver against? Is it falling customer numbers? And so there's not as many customers as you're, right? So what is the biggest problem that you have? What is the one with the most recent deadline, and work on that first. And then just make sure that you build a backlog that's robust and is able to address all of the things, considering the compliance requirements, the needs of your customer, and the needs of business.
Sounds good. I think prioritizing your tasks is a good way to make sure that you're doing like the most effective, most important stuff first. You're prioritizing your workload. I think not just in industry, but also on my personal life as well. I think that would be very impactful.
Yeah,
and I think
absolutely.
talking about like regulation as well, with the GDPR regulations in the EU and these many different regulations, I think it's kind of hard to manage everything. So it was interesting how your team tackles it at American Express.
Yeah.
The next question, I think the final question, is that do you think that with online payment services such as like PayPal, Cash App, Zelle, whatnot, that it is competing with American Express? And how do you think American Express is growing, or how do you think the payment industry cash transaction industry is going to evolve in the next few years. And maybe if any of the hackathon participants want to create a project related to the industry, any advice you could give on your specific field?
Yeah. Yeah, so big disruptors of the payment industry. And while they have challenged the status quo, I think American Express has taken a unique perspective on them, and they try to view them less as competitors and more as opportunities for partnership. So we have a very close partnership with PayPal, which means that we also have a very close partnership with Venmo. And so it kind of goes back to some of the things that we've said before, is that when you start to focus on the people and the relationship building, whether it's with companies or with departments or even with individual people, that as you collaborate and find ways to work together, you create win-win situations. And I think that the way that American Express and a lot of other companies look at finding those win-win situations, the disruptors end up moving the entire industry forward. And that becomes very exciting. So that's what I've seen the last few years of my career.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mr. Whaley, for your time and your insights. I think extremely helpful for all our participants today, especially given your experience about hackathons and the payment industry as well. Good to learn more about your industry perspective. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you and have a great day.
Good luck, everyone.
Okay, so our final guest speaker for tonight will be Mr. Zanwar, the product manager at TikTok. Hello, Mr. Zanwar. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Hello, everybody.
So let's start off with a brief introduction. So again, our next speaker is Mr. Zanwar. Mr. Zanwar received his Master's of Business Administration at Brigham Young University. He was a product program manager at Microsoft, a senior product manager in tech at Amazon, and is currently a senior manager at TikTok. So the floor is yours, Mr. Zanwar.
Sure. Thanks for the introduction and the opportunity. Nice to meet you all, everyone. I haven't really done these virtual hackathons before, so hopefully there won't be any bumps. So yeah, I know there were a few prompts given to me, so I'll sort of talk about a little bit about myself, my career, talk a few other points about how I manage teams, any career advice, and then we can open it up for Q&A. How does that sound to everybody?
Sounds great.
Okay, perfect. So Chetan Zanwar, I live in New York City. I moved here a year ago for this role with TikTok. I am a senior product leader for trust and safety. I particularly lead DM, comments, and search safety for the US marketplace, and now we are sort of becoming more of a global team as well. Prior to this, I was at Amazon for 5 years. Again, a product manager for most of the time at Amazon. Worked on a variety of products and projects, mostly. So half of my tenure there was internal facing, half of it was external facing. And by that, what I mean is half of the time I was building tools that were for internal employees. As you know, Amazon has one of the largest workforces in the world. So building products and tools to add efficiencies to their processes is very, very important. So that was first half of it. And then the external is you and I as consumers, when we interact with Amazon.com, buy products, that's the external facing side of things. So I got experience on both sides, and it was pretty cool. Yeah, and then at Microsoft as a program manager, mostly worked, which was my work was very separated away from tech. It was mostly program management, and that didn't really excite me as much. I love talking to engineers. I love building design, product design, etc. So that's why I made the leap from Microsoft to Amazon. Been in the States for 10 years now. I'm originally from India. I got my undergrad in metallurgical engineering. Worked in technology sector for 5 years, and then moved to the States for my MBA at BYU. For those who are curious, I am not Mormon. BYU happens to have a great MBA program. That's what attracted me to the university, and it's a pretty cool place to actually, study at. Really, really nice people and great opportunities after the MBA. So yeah, so where do we begin? Let's start with what specifically I do, my work. So I work in trust and safety. So I'm sure a lot of you use TikTok. So you mostly are exposed to the good side of TikTok. Sometimes you may be exposed to the bad side, but mostly you get videos, entertainment, etc. My team ensures that the bad actors of society are prevented. We are able to thwart them before they are able to get to the people with their content. It could be anything, right? Think about any bad content you can think on TikTok. It could be wrong information, disinformation. It could be harassment. It could be violent activities. It could be something targeted at minors. So really, my team looks at those things and tries to build product and solutions that'll prevent those bad actions from taking place. You get the good experience, but a lot of work goes on in the background from a product perspective as well. We have a lot of algorithms that try to catch these infiltrators, try to catch the bad actors before they actually can hit you, right? So that's what my team is focused on. Like I said, I focus on comments, DMs, and search. Think about anything that can go wrong with any of these spaces. Or search, you search a video, a wrong information video pops up. Again, that's a problem, right? So we want to make sure that the quality of videos in your search are accurate and give you the most truthful information. So that's what my team does. From DM perspective, while we cannot track and we do not track what comments or what conversations you are having, with your friends, we have to be able to catch, predators, for example, from getting to the minors, right? So we have to build algorithms that can track certain patterns and then block those users. Comments, again, you post a video, you see somebody bullying, we need to be able to catch that person and potentially ban them, right? So that's the kind of work that happens in the background. And a lot of the comments can be low quality comments. So we want to make sure that the comments don't hit the user's experience after hitting a certain threshold of violations, right? That's my work. That's what mostly I do day in, day out, build algorithms, build product, build solutions to prevent mishaps happening on TikTok. How do I manage my team? I go by the 3 C's philosophy. One is coaching, second is career, and third is communication, right? So I try to coach my team as much as possible whenever they get stuck. Obviously, you don't want to be micromanager, but at the same time, you want to be able to coach them. If they are blocked somewhere, they get stuck somewhere, you want to be able to be their mentor when they need you the most, right? So coaching is a big part of my job at TikTok. Second is career. Obviously, everybody's ambitious. Everybody wants to grow. Everybody wants to learn. Everybody wants to have different sorts of experience. and my job is to keep them motivated from a career perspective, right? I want to make sure that I give them the wide array of projects that they are interested in, right? Some people might be interested in working on technology side of things. Some people might be working on other side of things. Some people are interested in, I want to manage team in the future. So how do you sort of give them that experience that as much as possible within your control? That's what I try to do. And then last, which is probably the most important one, is communicate, right? Obviously, I want as much transparency. I want to be as much candid with my direct reports. Because I want them to know that, hey, the more we communicate, the better it will be for our team, for our projects, and that sort of helps them, carry that message forward as well when they interact with other partner teams as well, right? Because that's a big part of product manager. A product manager is sort of a quarterback, right? They try to make sure that all the moving parts are working correctly, and then they try to drive the project in a particular direction. That's their responsibility. So the better they communicate, the better the outcome is going to be. So you want to be able to not only coach them, but also lead from the front in terms of communication. So that's how I manage my team. From a career advice perspective, I'll tell you a small story, and that sort of will summarize the gist of what my message is going to be for you all today. So, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a metallurgical engineer. For those who are wondering what that is, metallurgical engineering essentially is all about metals, building alloys, building different types of steels, extracting metals. So anything you can think about metals from an engineering standpoint, that's what my degree pertains to. When I was an undergrad, I was hired by a steel company immediately after my graduation. And first week on my job, I, as a part of the onboarding process, they make you, go through a lot of exercises. One of the exercises, of course, is a medical examination. And that was for the first time I realized I learned I was colorblind, right? A lot of folks who are colorblind don't really know until they actually take the test. So at that point, they had to let me go because industry regulations dictate you cannot have, a colorblind person on the shop floor because, this is an extreme scenario, but what if I press the wrong button? It could be catastrophic for the entire factory, right? So really, from a manufacturing standpoint, they cannot afford to have a person who cannot actually tell the differences between the colors, right? And not that it's that severe for me, but still, if I fail the test, that means they cannot technically allow me to work there. So yeah, so at that point, I was basically stumped, right? I did not have many options. I didn't know what to do because I had learned metallurgy. I had developed a passion, interest, and I was really looking forward to working in it. And then I tried to see like, hey, what else could I do? What are the industry opportunities that I can put my skills in? And then that's when I decided to learn more about coding and, how do you enter the computer sector, technology industry, right? And then I did a 6-month boot camp on how to go about, software development and learn the basics of software development, and then got myself a job and worked in the IT sector for 5 years. So long story short, had that episode of my life in my career not occurred, had I not been colorblind, I would have not been sitting in front of you today, right? I would have been probably working in the metallurgical sector. So really, the moral of the story is, if you're set in your career, your goals, your aspirations, that's great. But if you're not, if you're still trying to figure out what you really want to do, it's okay. Really, it's about keeping an open mind and being open to, just dive into a situation, learning and getting out of it. Because I can assure you, no experience is going to go waste if you put yourself into that situation. So make sure you are not very stubborn about what you really want to do. If you are thrown into a situation which is not necessarily of your liking, but you still think that it's going to be better for your career, because it is in fact going to be better for your career, just open mind, keep an open mind, learn as much as you can, soak as much as you can, and try to do the best you can in that situation. Because Once you learn out of the situation, you'll be proud of yourself, and you go about building your profile as well, because you never know, 10 years down the line, that experience may come handy, right? This particular story of mine actually helped me get a job at Microsoft, because they saw that I had the ability to be adaptable, right? So really, no experience goes to waste. Try to keep an open mind when you start your career. So that's one piece of advice I'd like to give you all today. So yeah, I know I spoke a lot. I've been speaking for the past 30 minutes, so I'm going to take a pause here and open it up for Q&A, or also dive into specific areas if you'd like me to.
Yeah, thank you. So we actually did open it to Q&A, and we'll start off with some of the more general questions. So what would you say is the difference between project and product management?
Yeah, so I would say to be a good product manager, you need to be a good project manager. So project manager is a subset of product management. When you're working in product space, you have a tangible product at hand, right? That's the end outcome. For a project management, basically you're trying to drive an outcome from A to B, right? That's just a small piece of the project. So it could be like, hey, I want to build a particular, so let's think about, I want to build a particular module from a tech standpoint, right? It's not going to be customer facing, but it's going to be just one of the modules, while building the tech or the back end. So driving that module from point A to point B will be project management. Driving the whole end-to-end front-end customer experience will be product management. Product management involves, right from the beginning, you need to have a vision, mission, strategy, what you're trying to build, and then you start executing it as a project manager, and then keeping in mind, hey, what are the requirements? What am I going to build? How do I take customer feedback? What are my tech requirements? All those things have to be considered. And then finally, you start working with marketing teams and sales teams and go-to-market teams to see how you can actually start communicating with your customers to start using the product, right? So that's product management. So project management, I would say, is a subset of product.
All right, thank you. So we have a lot of questions about like your specific work in TikTok, and as well as like career advice.
Yeah.
So what tips do you recommend to get like a leadership position in big tech companies like TikTok, especially with like the huge amount of layoffs recently?
Yeah, so I would say market forces are beyond our control, right? So the most important lesson I've learned is you got to start somewhere. So even if your goal is, say, work at TikTok, and you may not get that opportunity right away, working at a, say, small scale startup, right? Trying to build that profile, trying to build that, get that experience under the belt is very important. So keep that end goal in mind, and you can be obsessed about it, but don't get disheartened if you actually are not able to get it in the first go, right? Any experience, like I said earlier, is very important. So get that first job at a startup, right? Try to be as invested as you would have been in any other situation, because then if that startup succeeds, then you would have done a good job. Even if it doesn't succeed, but you want to make sure that you did your best, because you are going to come out as a winner, because you would have learned a lot from the experience. So really accumulating these small experiences till you get your end goal is the way to get. At least for me, that was how I did it. Is no matter whether I'm happy or not at a particular situation, in a particular project, in a particular company, I want to do a good job, because I know for a fact that my work ethic is going to take me a long way. So that's how I would think about getting to the sort of the North Star that you're chasing for. Get all the experiences under the belt, especially in this economy. Big companies are not hiring. So just work at a startup. That would be great, right? And then kind of go from there.
Yeah, thank you. I think our participants could take a lot from that piece of advice. So I guess moving on to more TikTok related questions. So someone asks, you work in trust and safety. How do you handle controversial posts? How do you classify certain posts as misinformation and others as not?
Yeah, so I'll give you a high level sort of how we go about managing trust and safety. So there's three key ways of identifying, say for example, misinformation. One is going to be user reported. So you come across an information, you see hundreds of thousands of people have actually interacted with it, liked it, commented on it, but you know for a fact that that's the wrong information. You're going to report the post, right? So we are going to rely on user reports. The second piece of information or second way of doing it is algorithms, right? Algorithms, now there's going to be bifurcation in algorithms as well. One algorithm will try to, basically know, we have keywords, right? So through the keywords, they'll try to analyze whether the post is potentially controversial. It has certain information which may be a misinformation. And then based on the accuracy that the algorithm can for sure say, hey, I have 90% confidence that this is actually misinformation post, automatically that will get banned because of the algorithm. Say now the second piece of it is if the algorithm detects it and says, hey, I have about 25 to 30% confidence, 25 to up to 80% confidence that this could be a post with misinformation in it, then let me toss it to a human to review it. So that would be the third way to do it. By the way, the first way where you report something, that also has a bifurcation, right? If you see that hundreds of thousands of users have interacted with it, out of which say X percentage of users have reported, then we know for a fact that this could be actually a wrong post, and we don't need to send it to a human being to review to be able to ban the post, right? We can make a decision because we know that the users have provided us with the wrong information. Also, if it had say 10 or 15 or whatever, I'm just making these things up, but if those are the number of reports it receives, then we toss it over to humans saying, hey, can you go and review this this particular post? If it's misinformation, let's ban it. If it's not, then we can continue going. So that's how we sort of we have a multi-pronged approach to solving for the bad content on TikTok. Again, it's very, very complicated. This was just a very high-level example of what I shared. It may be much more in-depth than that, but that's how we usually think about it.
Great. So we do have a lot of questions actually about how the recommender system works. I want to get to as many questions, as broad, range of questions as possible.
Yeah.
So let me see. So we have a bit more of a personal question. So we know TikTok has been pretty criticized recently in United States Congress, being affiliated with the CCP. So someone wonders, like, what's your take on the current situation between the United States and Congress about, Chinese influence and these anti-TikTok sentiments?
Yeah. So the way I look at it is there evidence, right? We have time and again asked the governments, like, hey, show us the evidence. If you see wrongdoing, we'll accept it and we'll accept the outcome. But really, there has been none, right? If you go search the internet, there's no affiliation per se. It's mostly like, obviously US has long-standing relationship issues with China, so obviously some of it is narrative driven as well, as I'm, and please don't quote me on this, right? This is my personal perspective, not necessarily me talking on behalf of TikTok, but that's how I see it, right? So a lot of it can be because of how somebody feels about China as well, right? It's not necessarily based on evidence because they don't have any. So unless tomorrow you come to me saying, hey, Chetan, this is the evidence I found that you're sharing data with CCP, I would gladly be like, okay, I'm willing to accept the consequence of whatever the government tells us, right? But unless that happens, I think it's all fair. We've claimed we've always maintained that our position, hey, we don't share any data with Chinese government. In fact, all of the user data now is housed on US soil, as you may have seen the testimony, right? So really there's no way. And by the way, that data that is housed on US soil in Texas is maintained by Oracle. So there's a very strict data governance protocol that is around it, right? So unless there's somebody with a very high security clearance, somebody has a very high security clearance, they will not be able to access the data, right? So only a few individuals now will be able to access US data. So really it's almost a foolproof system from which it's going to be not possible to share data outside of the United States, right? Unless there's a need for, say, hey, Europe needs some sort of data, and then that can be a partnership discussion with the US government, and then the US government can come and tell to us an oracle saying, hey, this is why the European Union needs data. So it'll have to go through a series of approvals to be able to share that data. Without that, it's going to be impossible. So that's how I see it.
Yep. Okay. Next question. As a product manager at TikTok, what would you say are some of the main challenges and goals that you have?
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty broad question, but it's an easy one for my field. The main challenges for us is to prevent bad actors from infiltrating TikTok as a platform, so that there is 100% good information, there's 100% useful information, there's no exploitation whatsoever happening as such, right? So that's really the most challenging part, in my opinion, right? Because we have to stay motivated to be able to see this content and remove this content, right? Because a lot of times when you are in trust and safety, you forget the impact that TikTok has on people, right? You don't know, because when I was, when our CEO testified, I'll give you an example. When our CEO testified, there were a lot of posts about his testimony, how people fell in love with our CEO, et cetera, right? And you could read through the comment section how much they appreciated our CEO and how much they appreciated him being polite and maintaining his calm, despite some of the times he was patronized quite a bit, right? People were being rude to him. There was xenophobia, right? He's from Singapore, but they kept referring to him from China, right? And that's when people actually said, like, this guy is a saint. But people also said, like, hey, this app got me some of the deepest, darkest spots of my life, right? I was in a very bad place, and this app actually helped me get out of it. So these impact you don't get to see when you're in trust and safety. Another example was like a small business was struggling, and then they posted on TikTok, and they took off, and then they were able to get it off the ground and be able to be cash positive, and then they're able to make impact, right? All on TikTok. So such stories are very heartening stories. You don't necessarily always get to hear when you are just thinking about the bad side, right? But really the challenge is to make sure that the bad side is shrinking and the good side is expanding, right? And again, the main goal would be to aim for 100% clean platform, right? That's always going to be I know that's not realistic, but still that would be the goal that we'll be chasing. So one of the goals for me right now is to remove as much as possible, as much as misinformation as possible from the platform from a search perspective. So when you search as a user, we want you to get only authentic information, and all the low quality videos are down ranked so that you don't get exposed to that information at all. You get the accurate information. So that's one of the goals that I'm chasing right now. I know it was a very high level, but hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point. I think it's impossible to have a truly 100% like good platform. So I'm going to go through two more questions. One is, how do you utilize artificial intelligence to improve the user experience, especially in regard to moderation?
Yeah, so think about it this way, right? Artificial intelligence is nothing but historical data being fed into it, and it keeps learning from the information that is being fed into, right? So the more you as a user sends us information saying, hey, this is bad content, the algorithm will pick it up and flag it as bad content. So next time another content is of similar sort is shared, the algorithm will say, hey, there's a match. This means this is a bad content because it was already flagged as bad content either by moderators or by the users, right? So it's sort of a virtuous cycle which is self-sustaining. So every time you are actually reporting a video or a comment or something or a user, you're doing good work, right? Because you're actually helping us make our algorithms stronger and smarter, because it's learning from all the bad posts and saying, hey, next time I see a bad post, I'm going to make sure that it doesn't get surfaced to the top. And the wider the pool of bad content, the smarter the AI is going to be, right? So the more content that comes that is violative, the more our AI knows, like, hey, now I have this big pool of information to search from of violative content, and if there's a hit, then I can automatically ban that video. So that's how AI works.
All right, thank you. So last question, and I guess this is more tailored towards this particular participant's career path.
Yeah.
So pretty much this participant is planning on going to an Indian college for undergrad in computer science and then pursuing a master's in the United States.
Mhm.
So this participant is asking if this undergraduate in India would have any effect compared to, attending a United States university for both degrees.
I mean, simple answer is no. I came from the same background. Hundreds of thousands of people do the same thing. I feel like any Indian university is equally competitive as any of the American universities, right? If not more competitive, because there's just sheer number of more people, right? So it's going to be hard to get into a university, the top ones, then getting into some of the universities here, right? And again, there's no comparison per se. I'm just saying from a sheer volume perspective, you are actually in a more tough spot to get into a good university. So I would say absolutely not. What's more important at the end of the day is you learn, and I would say most of Indian colleges, the curriculum is at par with American universities, right? So from a learning perspective, absolutely not. It's going to be the same learning experience. Now, you can argue like, hey, from understanding, staying abreast with all the technology, the trends, because everything is happening here. Yeah, but maybe in India, Silicon Valley, that is Bangalore, technology is happening there as well. So you must find opportunities to get exposed to this technology, participate in hackathons, see what other people are doing, go to conferences within India to be able to hone your knowledge and expertise. So I think you have every opportunity to be competitive, no matter where you are in the world. And eventually, go to your goal of say, hey, you want to come here for master's? Great, but I don't think where you do your undergrad really matters.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
So with that being said, we are at 8 o'clock, which means we're out of time. Mr. Zanwar, thank you so much for speaking today. We really appreciate all of your experiences and insights.
Absolutely. I hope this was helpful for you all. And I'm happy to, if you want to reach out to me, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to answer any specific questions that you may have or guide you along your career paths.
Yeah. All right. Have a good day.
All right. Good luck with the hackathon, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
You too.
So that was all for our guest speakers. This concludes our opening ceremony and our guest speakers portion of the event. So the next important time is tomorrow at 1 p.m. And if you're coming in person to Rutgers Prep for the in-person event, you will have to be there at 12 p.m. Eastern. And yeah, so I'm hoping that everyone is prepared for tomorrow, and good luck to everyone.
Yep, we'll see you tomorrow.